when that scene happened, I'll be real with you. I imagine my sister with like her ex-husband. Boy, if at that age, I would have walked in there, no cares. I would have whooped him.
Yeah, your sister wouldn't have been able to stop you.
No, I would have whooped him till
Your
he was
eyes would have went fucking glazed over. No one would have been able to stop you.
No, that dude, I'd be in prison.
1, 2, 3,
4. Welcome to Nerdtaku Podcast, where we watch it so you don't have to. I'm your host, Eli. With me is my co-host, Ben.
Hello, listeners. Good to be back.
This week, we're reviewing the 2012 drama, Perks of Being a Wallflower. Spoiler warnings ahead. Ben, I know I ask you every week. Are there spoilers?
Most definitely.
Director, Steven Chbosky. Main cast, Logan Lerman, Emma Watson, Ezra Miller, Paul Rudd. Ben, this 2012 whimsical movie that when we watched the trailer, it was just whimsical. It was fun. It looked exciting. And after spending some time watching this film, I would have to say I did thoroughly enjoy my experience with this piece of art that is Perks of Being a Wallflower. What were your initial thoughts after watching this?
I really enjoyed my experience watching this film. I remember when it came out, our junior year, we decided to watch this film and we ended up really enjoying it, and just rewatching it reaffirmed those feelings and the way I felt before. It's a very down-to-earth kind of feel for a teen drama, and I actually really enjoyed it.
IMDb rated this film at a 7.9. The synopsis on IMDb is Charlie, a 15-year-old introvert, enters high school and is nervous about his new life. When he befriends his seniors, he learns to cope with his friend's suicide and his traumatizing past. I think that synopsis really does explain pretty much the story. It's a very simplified one, which is clear to the point. It's nice.
Yeah, once we get into it, we can explain it more, but it's just a straight to the point kind of synopsis, but we can really dive into the plot and get into what this film is truly about.
Yes. This film, I gave it an 8.5.
We're really close in numbers. Mine was an 8.75.
I'm going to be excited to see what the little difference is. So let's get into it. Let's start with plot.
The one.
I gave plot a 0.75.
Really? Let me hear why.
Okay, I did like the story. Don't get me wrong. It's about a boy who's dealing with a traumatizing past and the loss of his best friend in an age range that has a really tough time. 14 to 15. A 15-year-old, it's a really tough time. You remember being 15. It was, I know, half our life ago, but it was kind of one of the shittier years. Don't get me wrong. But there was one part in the story that I just wasn't a fan of, personally. I find the romance in the plot where Charlie dates Mary Elizabeth, I just found that to be just I wasn't like, I know it had to be in the plot because Charlie was trying to get Sam's attention and have this like little thing, but he didn't know what he was doing because he was 15, young and stupid. But I just didn't like it. I didn't like that storyline. I felt like it just had to be built up so that the kid can have a mental breakdown. I didn't like it personally, and that's why I gave the 0.75. Everything else I really did enjoy. I did really enjoy the connection that Charlie and Sam had. I really loved that, and I loved how they handled the trauma of being abused as a child. They showed rawness of it. It's not just this clean coat. Oh my gosh, I had a really rough childhood. No, this guy went through shit. I like the plot on how they did that. Besides that one part, which is about 15, 20 minutes of the film, everything else was good to me. So I gave it a 0.75.
So the whole thing about this is the fact that Charlie has no friends, right? None.
Yes.
He's going into high school. He has no friends. He doesn't know how to connect with people. His best friend shot himself, and he's just trying to make whatever friends he can. The way he does that is befriending Sam and Patrick, who end up getting closer with Charlie And the way their friendships progress throughout, it's so raw, it's so real. You don't just go to school and then find somebody and say, hey, you're going to be my friend and you're friends forever. It has to develop, and it does. It develops beautifully throughout. The whole thing with Mary Elizabeth was because Charlie was very new to experiencing anything with anyone. And Mary Elizabeth kind of threw herself at Charlie, and he didn't know how to say no. His mental state, his very being just didn't understand what a relationship was. He knew he didn't like her that way, but he decided to go with it. And that's why when he's on the phone with her and she's talking and talking and talking and won't stop talking, his mom says, Charlie, you need to break it off. You need to just break up with her. And he goes, you can do that? I can do that? That whole spiel was to show that Charlie had absolutely no idea that he could control what goes on in his life. He's been so introverted for so long. He's just not used to any of this.
Mm-hmm.
So that little blip of the story was very important. I felt like this followed Charlie's life beautifully throughout, to where started out as a nobody that nobody really knew or cared about, towards that happening, and then him kissing Sam at the party, breaking up the friendship, kind of putting a rift in there for a while, then him defending Patrick against the bullies, reaffirming his friendship with everybody else, and then his mental breakdown when his friends are leaving and he feels alone again, like nothing's there. He ends up having that mental breakdown, starts thinking about things again, saying that it's his fault that his aunt died. And what if he wanted her to die because of the way that she was sexually traumatizing him as a kid? He was starting to remember things. It's a beautiful flow. And my favorite part of the plot is the fact that he's writing a letter to someone. No one in particular. The person he's writing to doesn't know him. It's just a random letter that throughout this whole plot, the whole narration is him reading as if he's writing this letter. And I absolutely love that, because that was a way for him to figure out his own thoughts and really grow as a character. And that's very important to this plot line. Everything about this plot was just done beautifully for a very traumatized child, because he's only 15.
Okay, I'll say this. Like you said, the relationship, yes, it's very important to the plot. I personally, I wasn't a fan of it, but I do agree with you there. I do agree it is important to the story. I just didn't like it. That whole sequence in the plot, it just rubbed me the wrong way, but I understand the importance of it. It had to happen so Charlie could grow. That character development would have never been there if he never dated Mary Elizabeth. I do agree with you there. Acting.
That got a 1.
That got a 1. I really did like the cast they picked. This cast was very well thought out. They were all about the same age. They're all in their 20s, and they were acting like high schoolers. And fun fact that I learned when I was watching this film previously a few years back was that all these guys never got to experience high school. They never got to experience prom, all these like social events you have in normal high school. So for a summer of filming, they actually got to experience everything they wanted in high school. So it was really cool to see these guys actually show genuine excitement to go to these events, go to these parties, go to these dances. It was really cool to see how Logan, Emma, and Ezra, those three, they really just showed the real genuineness in their acting. And I really did overall really enjoy it. And I really liked the adults in this. I really liked Paul Rudd. He was a really standout character, well, diverse actor who, for his minimal role, he had maybe 10, 15 minutes on screen at most. He was one of the most impactful characters in this. And I love the parents. These two parents were so good in this film. With their minimal role, I really did like them. Oh, it was so good. Like we said in the plot, when the mom brought up, you can break up with her. It was...
I can do that.
I can do that. But the dad, when he handed in the 50 for the Secret Santa, enjoy this. I'm like, ooh, the rawness of this was so good, because the dad, the actor, he's done a bunch of roles as a father figure, so he has the experience. It was well thought out for the casting. I really did enjoy it.
I cannot believe how easy it was to connect to Logan Lerman as Charlie. It was fantastic. His awkward self around people, the way that he just didn't want to approach anybody, talk to anybody really, participate in class when he wrote down the proper answers and Mr. Anderson asks him why he didn't raise his hand and participate. I mean, I gotta say, the way that he was, the character he showed was me for my entire sophomore year almost. I was basically the same as Charlie, except for the mental stability. I had that. But other than that, the introvertness, the way he was afraid to approach people, just how he acted in crowds, that was me to a T. I connected with him perfectly. And when he showed the mental breakdowns, or when he was high, or how he felt around Sam, just his facial expressions, the way he acted, the way he was, amazing, amazing job. Same with Sam. Emma Watson portrayed Sam beautifully. She was also traumatized because she had a father who let people do whatever they wanted to his daughter, like his boss. She had a lot of trauma in her backstory, and you could feel that trauma through her acting. You could feel that she also just wanted to be a normal person. She wanted to feel accepted by others. She just wanted to feel real and normal. And the way she is portrayed is beautiful. Ezra Miller playing a gay high school kid who has come out, but is with someone who has not. It resounds with you. It is raw and real throughout this entire production. All of them are amazing. The supporting cast, Bob the friend, Mary Elizabeth, Alice with the very small part she has. I was very impressed with this cast. Very impressed. You could really resonate with the three main characters, Charlie, Sam, and Patrick. You could feel them like they were in high school, like they're just trying to live. They're just trying to express themselves as best they can. It's just outstanding acting.
Yes, I do agree fully. Character development.
That got a 1.
I gave it a 0.75, but since we've been talking more about the acting and such, I'm going to give it a 1. Why did you give it a 1?
Because every single one of them developed. Charlie started off as a complete introvert, had nothing to do with anybody, kept to himself, ate lunch by himself, and he got the courage to start talking with Patrick at the football game. Throughout that, he started to get to know Sam and Mary Elizabeth and Alice and Bob, and he just became part of this friend group where he finally felt like he could really just be himself, mostly.
Yeah.
Where he could really connect with these friends and just talk and have fun and express himself. What really brought it out was when he was at the party with Sam and Patrick, and Patrick tells him that he's part of the group, and Sam says, "Welcome to the island of misfit toys." That really solidified Charlie's inauguration into this friend group.
Mm-hmm.
And it just kept going and developing and getting stronger, and he started connecting with Sam even more. Sam ended up kissing him, saying, "The first person that you kiss, I want to be someone who actually loves you." She kisses him. And then the whole thing with Mary Elizabeth happens, and he ends up kissing Sam after, he's dating Mary Elizabeth, and kind of breaks the friendship off, and he starts to kind of tumble and tunnel back down into the way he was thinking before he had friends, and his mind started to break a little. Then he saves Patrick. They become friends again, and he zooms and sails back up to the mental stability that he needed, and then they went off to college. There was a lot of up and down, and it was needed for this certain character. Beautifully done. Sam's development was strong. She always let people treat her how they wanted to treat her. She didn't feel value in herself. And as she got to know Charlie more and more, Charlie boosted her confidence like crazy. She found her boyfriend Craig cheating on her, and she had the courage to break it off. She's never had the courage to break off a relationship. They always had to leave her. So she finally found that courage and that self-worth through getting to know Charlie. Same with Patrick. He finally stood up to Brad, who was the quarterback who wanted a secret relationship with Patrick, and in talking with Charlie, got to really know that he also has self-worth. He is fine without Brad. He will find someone else, He just became a very strong staple in both Sam and Charlie's lives through finding that self-confidence. It was a huge development throughout all three of these cast members. It was just stupendous.
I agree with you. The development in this film was outstanding with the three main characters. The best one by far being Charlie, starting with the fact that he's writing those letters being super insecure about it, being not sure how he's going to handle high school. He even talks about the days. He's like 1,385 days left. And he's trying to imagine the last day of high school. You see him crippled in fear when you're seeing those freshmen frog hop in the hallway, yelling, "Let's go, freshman Toad. Let's go, freshman." And he just hides his face. You can see the fear. And then slowly he develops that friendship because he decides, you know what? I got nothing to lose. Patrick was in my shop class and I'm going to say hi. And he learned that Patrick is the oddball in the group. So he started to realize, hey, maybe we can get this relationship going as a friend. And then Sam walks in. He's like starstruck. You can see it when she walks in and starts talking to Patrick. He's like, "Oh, hi." And throughout, you can just see him growing because he's learning to let go of the fear of being alone. But near the end, he had that fear came when she went to college and she left. And he had that little traumatizing moment when she touched his leg and reminded him of his aunt and spiraled down. But then he got the help and accepted it and understood that he was molested.
Yep. Finally came to terms with this happened to me and I need help.
Yes, and his parents didn't even know. So you saw the heartbreak from them, and he's just coping with it, understanding what to do.
Well, yeah, just when you see the doctor explain to them what she was told and just the reaction they both had coming into the room, giving him the hugs, giving him the love, they had no clue. And it just, like you said, it showed through the parents that they have a very strong love for this young man, Charlie. Even Candace does when Charlie called her and started saying, "It's my fault that she died." And she automatically said, "Call 911 and get the police to my house now."
Yeah,
that
and
family has a very strong bond.
Yeah, it's a very tight-knit group in that family, and it's really nice to see that this whole thing didn't break anyone, or like the family didn't go, "Oh, forget it. We don't believe you." No, they just grew together. It just grew a stronger bond. Even with the brother being away, he even was so concerned. He's like, "Are you doing better? Are the visions still there? Are you okay?" It was just so good. I really enjoyed it. And my dark horse in this for the character development, I feel like Brad showed so much too. You saw Brad go through this whole, he had to get drunk to make love to Patrick, but then he sobers up and then he realizes like, "Hey, I'm going to be with you guys because of Patrick. I'm going to be your friend." And then his regression fell when his dad beat him. When his dad beat him, you saw the real animal come out. And you saw him going, "I'm not doing this anymore."
Well,
Because I can't.
sort of.
Sort of, but like, you know what I mean.
It was
You know what
it was in front of his friends, right?
Yeah.
No teenager wants to admit that they're gay. They get
No,
made
no.
fun of, right? That's what happens back in the 90s.
So no one wanted to come out, and you saw that like the regression of him just getting so frustrated and trying to keep his ideal popularity. And then after Charlie whooped his friends' asses with breaking one nose and shoving the dude, you saw Brad just vulnerable, didn't know what to say. He was so out of words, like, "Hey, thanks for stopping them." You could see that he just had no other words.
Mm-hmm.
I just felt the supporting cast was so good too with their developments. It wasn't like Charlie's, it wasn't like Sam's, and it wasn't like Patrick's, but it was well enough to blossom those three with them. So I really did like the character development throughout all the characters.
Well, even his sister too. She got slapped by Ponytail Derek, and she said, "I can handle him." And Charlie was explaining, just like Aunt Helen.
Yeah.
And she's like, "I can handle him. It's fine." And then she realizes, you know what? It's not worth it. Breaks up with him and goes off to school. She grew too.
Yeah, when that scene happened, I'll be real with you. I imagine my sister with like her ex-husband. Boy, if at that age, I would have walked in there, no cares. I would have whooped him.
Yeah, your sister wouldn't have been able to stop you.
No, I would have whooped him till
Your
he
eyes
was
would have went fucking glazed over. No one would have been able to stop you.
No, that dude, I'd be in prison. I'd be in prison. It's a mess. But this character development in this story was just so good.
Absolutely.
Sound and music.
0.75.
I gave it a 1. Why did you give it a 0.75? Why couldn't it be a 1?
It's not that the music was bad. It was great. It had a lot of great music choices. It really matched with a lot of the scenes. It was quite beautiful. It's just not my taste. Not fully my taste. A lot of it was like indie folk, kind of a little grunge, not so much what I'm really into. And because it was Sam and Charlie together, they used a lot of that music. They didn't really focus on anything else. It was just my personal taste. I'm not saying that it was terrible. I'm not saying it didn't match. I'm just saying I couldn't resonate with this film through the music because it wasn't what I typically listen to.
See, when I look at this film, I looked at it as the music style was giving off the indie vibe. And it did. It was going to give off an indie vibe because it was a low budget film. And they always go with those artists who are a little more obscure and a little more niche. And throughout this film, the music did work really well. And I don't blame you. That music is very niche. It's a very niche taste. And I don't blame you for not enjoying it to the fullest.
It didn't fulfill my palate.
Yeah, fulfill your palate. It didn't fulfill your palate, and I don't blame you. For me, I really did like the sounds that they were doing in this film. When he was on acid on New Year's Eve, when they were counting down for New Year's, everyone's going 10, 9, and you're hearing the da-na-na-na. You see him just going flashbacks. You're just seeing a bunch of quick shots of flashbacks, and then one. And then I just loved the minute sounds in this. It just brought everything together. I like the scene where he was coming out from the wall at I think it was Homecoming. I love that song. Come on, it's not called "Come On Eileen," I don't think, but it's
yeah.
Come on, Eileen. Yeah, it's like "Come on, Eileen." No, 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 no.
I like how that's the only sentence you know.
Yeah.
Come on, Eileen.
Everyone knows that line. The music in this to me fit really well with the film for the styling they wanted. And yeah, I kind of agree a little bit. It's not my cup of tea, but I really did enjoy overall what they did with the soundtrack.
See, like I said, I feel like it matched the movie. It matched the scenes. It didn't pull me in. That's why it's not lower than a 0.75. It just wasn't high enough for me to bump it. It didn't catch me.
It was good, but it wasn't amazing.
Exactly.
Cinematography.
0.75.
Matching 0.75. Yay. I will say this right now. The stylizing of this film, they try to make it look like it was on one of those reels, like those camera reels.
Yes.
And it just fell flat.
Exactly.
It fell flat to me. I understand the stylizing by it. It's a really niche styling. It's not bad. Like if you're going to do an 80s film, why not try to do it looking like it's on Polaroids and all that? But it just, for me, not grasping.
No,
I didn't like it. Because the lighting, yes, they did realistic lighting in Cars, which I love it. I love the realistic lighting, and the lighting they did in the truck at the first time when Sam was trying to get out of the car. You're like, this is the song. We need to go in the tunnel. Just the shading and lighting was so good in the cinematics. I loved it. There were some times where that type of styling of film was just kicking them in the butt. It just didn't feel right, didn't look good. I didn't like the graininess. It was good, but it wasn't amazing. Didn't keep me engrossed in the cinematography.
Dude, that's exactly what I have written in my notes. It was that grainy Polaroid looking shot that we had the exact same vibes going on there. I really enjoyed how when he was on acid, they were counting down, right? And he's trying to focus on the people, but he can't because they're moving too fast for his brain to process. So there's after images. As they're walking, there's a bunch of after images and it's spinning. And I enjoyed a lot of the things that the cinematics did, but that grainy Polaroid looking just didn't match what they were trying to deliver. It didn't work. Really, that's the only complaint I had. That's why it's at a 0.75. Honestly, I would probably put it at a 0.85, 0.9. A lot of the shit was good. The lighting was amazing. Even when he was getting into his flashbacks about Aunt Helen, it was a darker, grungy looking, but still lit because it's a dark past, but he's trying to remember it. So they kind of brought some light towards it. It was just really well done. It's just that small thing, that small Polaroid looking whatever they tried didn't work.
Director.
I won.
I gave it a 0.75.
Really?
This one, I might be stretching it. I mean, it's in the in between. Like, I just felt that with, honestly, I really don't know why I gave it a 0.75.
All right, let me tell you why I gave it a 1.
I want to hear why you gave it a 1.
This story is to follow a very troubled child trying to figure out his life. Basically, all three of them, but mainly focusing on Charlie. The way this flowed didn't have a lot of really slow parts to it. It had to give you some flashbacks and some thought process. But that was important to the story. Therefore, the few slow parts there were, it didn't really take your focus from the film. I just feel like he wanted the story to follow Charlie and his development throughout, with Sam and Patrick joining in the fray and their development throughout, with Mr. Anderson being in there to help Charlie with the few things that he needed to help with. Even that small blip of a relationship with Mary Elizabeth, the way he got the actors to fulfill their roles, get you really sucked into these characters through the plot, through the development. There was a lot going on. It flowed perfectly. He had a story he wanted to deliver. Charlie's life at 15 years old, trying to connect with people, get this introvert to shine. And it delivered. It was a perfect flow. Very well done.
All right. I'll give it to you. I'll give it a 1. You did make me think about the flow, and it actually worked very well. I totally agree. And I think that his handling with all the cast, he did very well directing them. This is this man's book. And how else can you tell it? He told the story of his own writing. That's like John Green walking in and doing Fault in Your Stars.
I mean, that's how Lord of the Rings was done too. He didn't direct it, but he was there to oversee it. He's like,
yeah,
no, you're not changing that. No, that's not happening. This is how it's going to go. And they followed everything that J.R.R. Tolkien wanted.
Attraction.
I gave that a 0.75.
I gave it a 0.75.
Mine ultimately came down to the cinematography. It kind of goes into that, and the music that didn't really pull me in, because the plot was great, the acting and the character development, beautiful. But the attraction itself, just in big picture settings, the cinematography and the music threw off just a bit. Not enough that I stopped looking at the screen, but enough that my focus snapped me back and said, oh yeah, I'm watching a film. I'm not this person. It's really just ultimately that, because a lot of other stuff was just very well done, especially the dialogue. We haven't gotten to that yet, but holy Lord.
The attraction for me was almost solely cinematography for me. It really could not stand the stylizing of it. I understand it's in the 90s. It would have been cool if they brought out a camera and did a little bit of a, let's do a little bit of a short thing of a camera reel type thing. No, don't do the whole film in a grain. The grain made it look kind of unpolished. I like a polished film. I don't want a grainy experience. I will say this. I do enjoy this film. I've seen it enough times now where I look at the details, I look at all the nuances, and I've realized that my taste in film has changed.
Dramatically. My taste has changed dramatically.
And this film, back in 2012, I fucking loved it. Today, it's okay. I still see the qualities of it. I see the loveliness, the joys, the character development. So beautiful. But to me, it's just okay. So the attraction to this film has been lost over time, but I still give it a 0.75 because the character development, the dialogue, the acting, it's so good. These guys did such an amazing job with doing this version of the director's book.
Basically bringing the character to life.
Yes, exactly. Dialogue.
That got a 1.
That was a great one.
I have so much written for this.
Dude, let me start a little bit because you got some stuff. Maybe I'll knock some liners out.
Understood.
My favorite line in this whole film.
I already know what that is.
Yeah, it's straight up. Everyone, if you don't like this line, it's why. It's between Paul Rudd's character, Mr. Anderson, and Charlie. And Charlie asks the serious question, why do nice people pick the wrong people to date? And then Mr. Anderson, he sits there for a moment, looks around, looks up, and goes, we accept the love we think we deserve. It's, my whole life. That line hits every time. So good. Now, I'm going to say this. That line made the film because Charlie used it later with Sam, and it was like, just come back with the lines. And then the line in the truck where he's sitting there coming off the high and he goes, feel infinite. And then at the end of the film, he says that again. So good. I loved Patrick because of the lines he used in shop class where he's imitating the teacher. He's like, back in Nam in 68, you got to kill the kook. My best friend got killed in a Saigon whorehouse. And then he's like, all right, you either call me Patrick or call me nothing. All right, nothing. The teacher was such an ass. And then the teacher's like, nothing. Why don't you start reading? All right. Chapter 1, your fascist shop teacher bringing you down to make himself feel good. And I'll say this last one, the line when Charlie goes and beats the turd out of those two dudes. Touch my friends and I'll blind you. Oh, so good. Just overall, this director had some of the greatest lines that he wrote, and these guys delivered these lines beautifully. It was by far breathtaking to just hear these lines when they were delivered.
Absolutely. Sir, if I could put the script on here and just read you the whole script, I would, but I couldn't. So I chose things that really, really stuck out, really resonated, right? So let's get started here, shall we? There is a point in which Mr. Anderson talks with Charlie and he asks why he decided not to participate, why he decided not to raise his hand. And he asked Charlie, is it because they make fun of you? Do they call you names like dork or dweeb? I got spaz. I mean, come on, spaz. Charlie says, really, I'm just trying to not stick out and make some friends. And he says, well, they say if you make one friend on your first day, you're doing okay. And Charlie's response is, thank you, sir, but if my English teacher is the only friend I made today, that would be sort of depressing. You're like, oh, damn. Yeah, making friends with your teacher, that's
sad.
If you can't make friends with people your age and you make friends with your teacher, that
Oof,
you are definitely the teacher's pet.
Jam into the stomach. Oh, that hurt.
Exactly. Then when they're at the freaking party and Charlie is high as fuck, or baked as a cake, he puts it.
That's what Bob
That's
said.
what Bob said, exactly. So he's baked. Sam had just told Patrick that Charlie's best friend killed himself last year, and Patrick is gathering everybody around and he says, welcome to the friendship. You're part of us. You're a wallflower, he says. Patrick's like, what's the matter? Charlie's kind of emotional at this point. He says, I didn't think anyone noticed me. And Patrick responds with, we didn't think there was anyone cool left to meet. And that's when Sam says, welcome to the island of misfit toys. That's when you know that they seriously accepted Charlie in their friend group right here. This is the biggest turning point for Charlie because he didn't think anyone noticed him. He didn't think he could make any friends. And this is the point when Charlie gets his friend group and starts to come out of a shell. Very important to the film. And it hits and it resonates because the emotion Charlie shows when they start saying, you are part of this group, it's just in his face. You can see it and it's amazing. And you already mentioned Charlie saying, why do nice people choose the wrong people to date? Mr. Anderson replies with, we accept the love we think we deserve. But you didn't continue with Charlie saying, can we make them know that they deserve more? Mr. Anderson responds with, we can try. Because it's true. You can say, hey, you definitely deserve more than what this person's giving you. You are worth way more. But whether they listen or not is entirely up to them, which hurts us all. It really hurts us all because we hate to see anybody we love in pain, right? I mean, that's natural human reaction. We hate to see them in pain and they don't want to listen. It hurts. So all we can do is try to show them that they're worth more. Whether it works or not, unfortunately, is on them. But you can still feel this line. It's very strong.
Yes.
One that made me laugh really very hard is Charlie's on acid, right? He goes outside, starts shoveling the snow. Sam comes out. He looks up. He says, oh, I saw this tree, but it was a dragon. Then it was a tree again. It just lied to me. You're like, oh my God, this guy is fucking toast. But I love it because he's just high as fuck. He's just got this little circle. Every time he grabs snow, it's just a tiny bit on the tip of the shovel. He throws it right back, basically in the same spot that he just shoveled. It's a great scene. It's like, I've seen people who are high as fuck, and that's that.
Yeah.
that right there is doing it perfectly. Like, wow.
I love the fact that in that scene, he's like, once I'm done shoveling this driveway, I will come up to you and congratulate you on the fact that you're happy.
Yeah, exactly.
Charlie, you said that an hour ago. Was that today?
That today?
I'm like, oh man, acid first timers are just so funny to me.
Absolutely. There's another point when Charlie asks Sam, you wonder if people really knew how crazy you were? Nobody would ever want to talk to you. I think about that all the time.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm just like, if I were the real me, how many people would actually be around me? I can be the real me with some people, but I go, right, you, exactly. But I go to work, I put on my fake customer service type person, right? I put on this shell. If I were to be the real me, how many people would actually enjoy my company is always my question.
I get in trouble for sometimes showing myself at my work.
Right?
Because my language, like I try to clean it up, but deep down, I am a little bit of a potty mouth and
A little bit.
I've gotten better over the years. Okay.
I haven't. I haven't.
I've gotten better. But no, my work, I'm very upfront. If I don't like something, I am going to address it. And I've had my directors kind of get mad at me about it, where it's like something's getting messed up. I'm like, what can we do? And they're like, we're government. We can't do anything. It's like, Gah!
Yeah. Let's see. There's another line where Sam says, you can't just sit there and put everybody's lives ahead of yours and think that counts as love. That's her kind of trying to explain to Charlie that she wants to be happy and he wants her to be happy, but he can't put her happiness before his. He puts everybody else's happiness, especially Sam's, before his. He never told her how he felt. And that made Sam wonder why. And he's telling her, I just want you to be happy. And that's when she explodes and says, you can't just sit there and put everyone's lives ahead of yours and think that counts as love. I know a lot of people who put other people way ahead of themselves and they are suffering. And it's hard to watch.
Oh, it's always hard.
It is very hard to watch. And you want to fix it, but they don't listen to you. And this line hit me hard because I forgot it was in the movie. I watched it. I'm like, oh shit. Yeah.
Yeah, I forgot about that line. That hits a little hard. It does.
Absolutely. And then there's when his doctor says to him, we can't choose where we come from, but we can choose where we go from there.
Yeah.
That one, I have a lot of words for that one, but ultimately, I don't want to get too far into my personal life here, but ultimately, that one hit me the hardest.
Yep.
Because there's quite a bit in that backstory there, and I actually started to tear up when I heard that line. Again, another one I forgot was in this film, and it hit hard.
I get you. That line resonates. If that line doesn't resonate with you, it's kind of hard to believe you're normal. That line hits anyone with such velocity of emotion. So it's understandable to feel remembering your past and getting hit hard with it and trying to move forward.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Big line.
There's just a lot that came up when I heard that line, and I had to pause the film for a minute, walk away, kind of collect myself, and come back and finish.
Amen, dude. That's I agree with you there.
Lastly is his final monologue. It's long, so bear with me here. I don't know if I will have time to write any more letters because I might be too busy trying to participate. So if this ends up being the last letter, I just want you to know that I was in a bad place before I started high school and you helped me. Even if you don't know what I was talking about or know someone who's gone through it, you made me not feel alone. Because I know there are people who say all these things don't happen, but there are people who forget what it's like to be 16 when they turn 17 and know these will all be stories someday and our pictures will become old photographs and we'll all become somebody's mom or dad. But right now, these moments are not stories. This is happening. I am here. I am looking at her and she is so beautiful. I can see it. This one moment when you know you're not a sad story, you are alive, but you stand up and see the lights on buildings and everything that makes you wonder when we were listening to that song on the drive with the people you love most in the world. And in this moment, I swear, we are infinite. I don't know if you could close off a film like this any better than that single monologue. It shows it's his final letter to his pen pal that he doesn't know. The pen pal doesn't know him, but it shows that writing these letters completely helped him through all this shit that was going on in his mind. And it shows that the love he has for his friends, for Sam, he's living in the moment on that day. He's not looking back on the past anymore because he's trying to work through it. There's just so much to that one single monologue that hits anyone that has any type of small or large trauma. It doesn't matter what kind of trauma. Everybody has trauma. This line shows you can get through it if you just work on it, try and get help if needed, and move past it as best you can. That literally is the most powerful way to end a drama like this. Just the freaking cherry on the top. So good. So fucking good. Dialogue more than deserved a 1.
I agree with you there. It's so good. Scenery.
That one only got a 0.5.
Ooh. I gave it a 0.75. I want to know why you gave it a 0.5.
You know, they were all over the place. They were at parties. They were hanging out at people's houses. They were out and about. But nowhere they went really struck my attention. Nowhere they were really fascinated me. It was just background. Whether they were in the building, at the dance, in a park, in the tunnel. The tunnel was beautiful, but it was just so-and-so. There was really nothing that pulled my attention onto the screen because of where they were. It was the acting, the plot, and the dialogue that was really bringing me into the scene. It had nothing to do with the scenery. There was nothing that popped.
I like the authenticity that the scenery brought. This film was based in 1990 in Pennsylvania, and 90s or 80s. They never really specified when.
I think
but
closer to the 80s because they were using cassette tapes and records.
Yeah, I'm thinking like the mid 80s, mid to late 80s. But I really did like the authenticity that this film brought in the scenery. I did really like the stylizing of King's Restaurant. It gave that nice diner vibe that you don't see anymore today. Back in the day, those were really popular. I really did like the use of records, the use of tapes, and I really just felt like the overall scenery just felt with the time. Wasn't amazing, don't get me wrong. I like the authenticity, but I will say it's good. Not great, not amazing. It was good. Good enough to get the story across. But overall, it was just good to me. So I gave it a 0.75.
Yeah, that's why I gave it a 0.5. It wasn't great, wasn't amazing. It was just there, setting for a place for them to do the scene. So I couldn't justify much. I probably could do a 0.75, but since I was so on the fence of what everything looked like, I'm just kind of like, meh, I'm going to just sit on the fence on this one. Half and half. Good and bad, but nothing great.
Yeah, I don't blame you. Recommend.
That one did get a 1.
I gave it a 0.75. I personally, this is me personally. Like I said earlier, I've seen this film a few times, and to me, I've lost the chutzpah for it. There's great dialogue, great lines, there's great character development, great acting. But for me, I'm gonna say that it's good. If it's your first time, give it a watch. But after seeing it so much, and with my taste changing dramatically, I think it's a one-shotter. Really, it's gonna take a long time for me to rewatch this. I'm gonna say I recommend it, but for like, it's okay.
You got to think back at the first time you watch this film, right? We watch it so they don't have to. Basically, we're saying our audience probably hasn't seen the film, correct?
Yeah. Yes.
Think back to the very first time you saw this film. What were your feelings? Obviously very different than what they are now, right?
Yes. And with that,
if you had just barely seen this film and you went to one of your friends, would you tell them, go watch this movie?
It would really depend on the friend.
No. Just think about it.
I'm being real.
No, you're not. You're thinking about now. You're not thinking about back when you started, when you first watched this film. The very first time you watched it, what was your thought? What did you think of this film?
I cried. Yeah, I cried first time watching this film.
It was one that you most definitely recommended to people to watch.
Mm-hmm.
There you go. Obviously, your tastes have changed because you've seen it multiple times, because your palate has changed. The way that you look at films has changed. Yes. I went back to the very first time I saw this film. I highly recommend it. because you can connect with your main cast super easily, especially because we were in high school when we first saw this film.
Yeah, it was our age.
Yes.
We were 17, 16, 17, yeah.
It is so easy to connect with these three, this main cast. It is a very passionate, raw, real story of an introvert trying to make it through his freshman year. I very highly recommend this film because it is so raw, so real, and instantly you can connect with Charlie. Instantly. Give it a go. You will not regret it.
Yeah, I agree. First timers, give it a watch. Overall, I give it an 8.75.
Yep, mine stayed at an 8.75.
As we wrap up this week's episode of Nerd Taku Podcast, we're going to talk about next week's episode. We're going to talk about the drama musical romance Cyrano. It came out in 2021. We just watched the trailer, and my personal thoughts on this trailer, it's generic. It's very nothing special, nothing spectacular. It is a musical, and you can see it. Everyone sounds lovely in it. They have great voices. The story, it looks like there's someone who's trying to find love, but he's short and a dwarf, doesn't believe he can find it or something. And then there's this man screaming in joy that this girl loves him, but the short guy's like, I want to write poetry for you so you can sound elegant and intelligent with this woman. So I think it's like a triangle story type thing. I don't know how I feel about it. I'm not a big fan of musicals anymore, but I'm going to give this one a shot, but I'm thinking it's going to be a 6.5.
Yeah, as you said, the trailer is quite generic. I can see that it's a story about this dwarf finding love, I guess, or trying to find love, or wanting to help people find love. I don't know. It's not specific in the trailer, so you don't really know what's going on. But you know there's music, and you know that it looks like some type of triangle, like you said, but I have no idea what's going on. All I know is it's about this guy named Cyrano de something that I can't pronounce. Anyway, something about this guy named Cyrano, who is a great swordsman and a poet, and I don't fucking know. It's a musical, so based on the trailer, I'm gonna have to rate it at about a 6.
All right, as we wrap up this episode of Nerd Taku Podcast, I'd like to thank everyone for tuning into this week. If you'd like to follow us, we're on Instagram and Threads at nerd_taku_podcast. We are on all major streaming platforms, and we're also on YouTube under Kingdom Notes Studios. My name is Eli.
I'm Ben.
Thanks for joining us this week, and take care.
Thanks, guys. See you next week.
Wanna hear you go?